Can you move that light towards me? Because it's right in my eyes, right?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So like that?
Yeah, that's good.
Welcome to our celebration of Swami Kriyananda's discipleship anniversary, which technically falls tomorrow. But we're celebrating this evening because we are often doing evening programs of a Friday night and less often doing them on a Saturday night. So let's just meditate for a minute or two and we'll begin then with a prayer together after that. Let's begin this evening with a prayer together. Please repeat after me. Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
beloved friend God,
beloved friend God,
great masters
great masters
of self-realization, Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Sri Yukteswarji,
Swami Sri Yukteswarji,
beloved Guru,
beloved Guru,
Paramhansa Yogananda Ji,
Paramhansa Yogananda Ji,
saints and sages of all religions,
saints and sages of all religions,
beloved Swamiji,
beloved Swamiji,
we invoke your blessings,
we invoke your blessings,
your consciousness,
your consciousness,
your wisdom.
Guide our
lives. Help us to understand
Help us to understand
the true meaning of discipleship,
the true meaning of discipleship,
that we may express it in our lives
that we may express it in our lives
for the blessing of all.
for the blessing of all.
Om, peace.
Peace.
Amen. This evening we will celebrate the 72nd anniversary of Swami Kriyananda's discipleship to Yogananda. And we will chant together, we'll have a brief meditation, we'll watch a wonderful video that was created in honor of Swamiji's life and his discipleship to Yogananda, since that was really the defining characteristic of Swamiji's life. I mean, we can say lots of things about his creativity, his incredible leadership. I mean, all of those things are very real, but if you want to get to a centrally defining characteristic, it was discipleship. And Swamiji, if he had a tombstone and an epitaph were to be carved into that tombstone, it would be, he was a good disciple, or may I be a good disciple. And it would be a good thing for all of us watching this to sort of examine within in terms of our own lives, because discipleship is not a characteristic or a practice or a sort of area of great strength in the world in these days, really in any country. Perhaps India has it more than other countries because the disciple-guru relationship is still alive and present there, but not so much in other places. You know, in the West, about the highest octave we can go in that regard is kind of the mentorship, concept. You have a student in university and they're looking for a mentor to help kind of inspire and guide them on their way in life. And the disciple-guru relationship, by comparison, is just orders of magnitude deeper and more profound, and has rippling implications, which we'll go into more later in the evening. But we wanted to just begin in a very devotional way. We've often remarked, and so those of you tuning in will probably recognize that one of the chants that Swamiji would sort of, his default setting chant was Door of My Heart. And it expresses qualities, it expresses an aspiration of the soul that, again, was very central to his own life as a devotee and as a disciple, but it's really quite universal for all of us. So we thought to begin the evening with that chant, and then we'll have another couple of chants and a short meditation, and then we'll watch this beautiful video that has been created at Ananda Sangha at Ananda Village. So chant with us now and feel the blessings of God and the great masters.
Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Open wide for We'll sing, Lord, I am thine, be thou mine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine. I am thine, I am thine.
We'll have one more chant and then a short meditation, and then we'll watch this video. This chant is Sri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Sri Yogananda, Guide to Inner Freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions.
I'll lead it.
Okay.
Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart and hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart and hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusion. Kriyananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusion. Kriyananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Sri Yogananda, guide to inner freedom. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions. Steal into my heart of hearts, banish my delusions.
Let's meditate for a few minutes. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So now we will change our camera position to show you this little video. And the video runs for about 18 and a half to 19 minutes. And then we will have a reading and I'll share some thoughts and then we'll chant some more. So give us a moment here to change our setup a little bit.
Kriyananda, James Donald Walters, was a direct
Flip that thing
disciple
around.
of the great Indian master Paramahansa Yogananda. For 65 years, he dedicated his life to spreading the teachings and the spirit of his great guru. Swamiji was born in Romania in 1926. His parents were American. His mother told him that throughout her pregnancy, she was filled inwardly with joy. Lord, she prayed repeatedly, this first child I give to thee. Romania was young Donald's home until the age of 13. At 9, he was sent away to school in French Switzerland for his health. There he lived and studied for 1.5 years. Thus, before he reached adolescence, he became fluent in 4 languages: English, German, Romanian, and French. From 1937 to 1939, he attended school in England. His family went to America for the summer holidays in 1939. They had just begun their return to Europe when Hitler invaded Poland and World War II began. Thus, they remained in America, settling in the eastern part of the country in Scarsdale, New York. Donald, from the age of 13, attended a succession of schools in the East: Hackley in Tarrytown, New York, Kent School in Kent, Connecticut, Scarsdale High School, Haverford College outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. This unusual variety of schooling, with the diverse experiences it offered, helped to prepare him for a life of reaching out to people of many cultures and countries with the message of his great guru, Paramahansa Yogananda.
And so I asked myself, what is God? And I realized that he can't be a robot. I mean, truth, our minds can't be robots. We can't be, you can train a robot conceivably, or a computer, or whatever you like. You can perhaps train it to know how to eat and to eat, but you couldn't possibly train it to ask questions like this. So I realized that he had to be something more. This consciousness of mine had to come from something. It couldn't be just a mechanism. It couldn't be just electrons flowing through a circuit of nerves in the brain. And so I realized then, God has to be consciousness. And I then am conscious because I'm a part of his consciousness. But then if that is the truth, then I am more conscious if I'm more open to his consciousness, less conscious if I'm not open to it. And I remembered standing by the shore and watching the waves come in and break in through rocks, passages through the rocks onto the shore and absorbing themselves in the sand. And I reflected, well, but those openings, it depended on how wide the opening was, how much water could flow through them. So then I thought, well, that means that if my opening is big, I can let God, more of God through into me. Then the purpose of my life must be to attune myself to Him and to make me more open to Him. And I remember I came back from that walk and I had resolved, and now in that short walk, I had resolved my duty in life then has to be to seek God. And if that's my duty in life, then why do anything else? I must devote my life to seeking Him.
In September 1948, in New York City, the young truth seeker read Paramahansa Yogananda's great opus, Autobiography of Yogi. He took almost the next bus across America, a journey of 4 days and 4 nights to Los Angeles, where the Guru had his headquarters. The first words he addressed to the Master were, "I want to be your disciple." Thus began the thrilling odyssey of young Swamiji's life. He was accepted that very day. From then on, he lived in his Guru's ashram on Mount Washington. Only a year later, his Guru placed him in charge of the other monks. Swamiji was to be given many other responsibilities over the years. Yogananda made him a teacher and minister and had him initiate others on his behalf. Later, he became the director of center activities worldwide for his Guru's organization, Self-Realization Fellowship, and organized many aspects of the organization's work. In time, he became the first vice president and member of the SRF board of directors. His Guru told him, "Your work will be lecturing, editing, and writing." On a number of occasions, Yoganandaji said to him, "You have a great work to do." And after Yogananda's passing, Rajarsi Janakananda, his foremost disciple, told Swamiji, "Master has a great work to do through you," then added, "and he will give you the strength to do it." In 1958, Swamiji went to India, where he lived for the better part of 4 years, teaching and lecturing. He also became widely known for his singing of bhajans in Bengali and Hindi. In northern India especially, he lectured to thousands. He met privately with the Prime Minister, Pandit Nehru, who thought so well of him that he endorsed Swamiji's plan to develop a 25-acre piece of land in the green belt area of New Delhi near Birla Mandir. Here, Nehru is viewing Swamiji's painting of the proposed project. Alas for Swamiji's plans to serve his Guru in India. His activities drew disfavor from the leaders of Self-Realization Fellowship in America. His intense desire to make his Guruji known in India seemed to them too original and creative. Fearful lest his activities endanger their own ability to control the work, they ordered Swamiji to return from India in July of 1962. Upon his return, they expelled him from the organization. Swamiji settled thereafter in San Francisco, California, and lived there for several years. He was invited to teach at Dr. Haridas Chowdhury's Cultural Integration Fellowship. Swamiji's love for his Guru, however, kept the needle of his mental compass ever pointing toward serving him. Eventually, through classes in yoga and meditation, he began to share Yogananda's teachings in many places in and around San Francisco. His dismissal from organizational involvement proved not the tragedy it had first seemed, but a release, for it made creative activity possible in accordance with the instructions the Master had given to him personally. Swamiji began writing books and composing songs, the lyrics and melodies of which expressed his Guru's philosophy. He wrote in all 150 books, each of them an offering to help deepen people's love for God and for truth. In addition, he composed over 400 pieces of music. He would often say, "If you want to know me, listen to my music." Ever in Swamiji's mind was his Guru's keen interest in world brotherhood communities, for which he had expressed his enthusiasm dramatically at a garden party in 1949.
He started in talking powerfully about communities. And he said, youth must go north, south, east, west, everywhere to spread this ideal of cooperative communities, world brotherhood communities. And he said, I am sowing my thoughts in the ether, and my words shall not die.
In 1968, Swami Kriyananda founded the first Ananda Community, fulfilling Yogananda's dream of world brotherhood colonies. The first buildings were geodesic domes, a shape Swamiji chose for its expansive effect on one's consciousness. Through the determined and joyful efforts of Ananda members, the community began to take shape and to grow, coming in time to comprise some 800 acres of land. Here, about 200 member disciples of his Gurudeva now live. A principle Swami established, with which everyone came in time to agree, was people are more important than things. This means that people's spiritual well-being is more important than projects or anything else. Closely related is the second principle: where there is Dharma, adherence to truth and right action, there is victory. When one makes righteous action his pole star, any resulting hardship will prove in time to be a blessing when embraced with courage, gratitude, non-attachment, and deep faith in God. A spirit of harmony and cooperation has been fundamental to Ananda's success.
The love and compassion that came toward the end of his life was, in some cases, almost startling. There was one story of a young man. Swami had traveled, and he had come back to Gurgaon in northern India, and he was sore. His body didn't easily take to travel. So this young man who did massages came to help him. And in the course of their conversation, Swami found out that not only did the young man not have a massage table, but he was really struggling for finances. And so Swami not only offered to, but ended up buying him a massage table. And the young man was extremely grateful. And it would be a beautiful story if that were all that it were. But as this young man, he was maybe early 20s, he had a wife and 2 children by that time. As he was leaving the little ashram where Swami was staying, he burst into tears and told one of the staff there, he said, I grew up as an orphan, and there was a hole in my heart. And what I always missed my entire life was the feeling of the love of a father. And now I have found that. And I don't think Swami did that consciously. because this boy was an orphan. I don't think he knew. It was just a constant outpouring of openness so that the divine could work through him and so that Master could work through him.
At present, there exist 6 Ananda communities. 5 of them are in America: Ananda Village in Nevada City, California, and others in Sacramento and Palo Alto, California, Portland, Oregon, and Seattle, Washington. A 6th community in Assisi, Italy, welcomes guests from throughout Europe, Russia, and farther afield. Some 1,000 people live and serve in these communities.
Swami Kriyananda was always an example of both discipleship and a life given to spirit. But honestly, toward the end of his life, he became, I would describe it as almost transparent. The part that was Kriyananda had gotten so thin that all that really shone through was the love, the compassion, the discipleship to Master, and especially the joy that he had worked on for an entire lifetime. And he modeled that for us. It was a beautiful thing to see.
Ananda's spiritual family includes, in addition, tens of thousands of others all over the world who devotedly follow the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda as brought to us and inspired by Swami Kriyananda. In 2003, in his 78th year, Swami Kriyanandaji felt his guru's guidance to return to India and take up once again the work he'd had to abandon more than 40 years earlier. At present, there are dynamic Ananda centers in Delhi, Gurgaon, Noida, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, Pune, and Calcutta, as well as a growing monastery in Kandala. Yogananda came to show the underlying unity between the teachings of Jesus and those of Krishna. And so Ananda is equally at home in the West and the East. And yet the devotees in India are showing a particular receptivity to these teachings. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the future for Ananda Sangha seems bright on the Indian subcontinent, land of great saints and masters, and the birthplace of the great guru of Ananda Sangha, Sri Paramahansa Yogananda. Watching Swamiji grow over the years, I first met him when he was in his early 40s, and then till he passed away in his late 80s. And it was such a beautiful thing because every step of the way, there was a radiant disciple, a radiant soul. In his early years, dynamic energy and willpower, able to change the world, to give a lecture as brilliant and as expansive as you could ever want to hear. And then his middle years, when he was more writing and putting his thoughts into those great books that he wrote, The New Path and the commentaries on the Gita, and establishing works in Europe and in India. But it was more transforming from him being a teacher to just manifesting things globally. And then at the end of his life, it was like all that was left was the soul. Lecturing was not easy for him. Writing was not easy for him. Traveling was not easy for him. Singing, any of the things, eating, walking. But what was left was the pure essence of who he was. And through all the outward forms, that was the thread that really, I think, inspired me from the very beginning till the very end. And that was the thread of the soul longing for God with every ounce of its being. And finally, one could feel at a certain point the longing and the yearning had been reciprocated, and there was no more striving. There was only resting in the beauty, the peace, the bliss of God. And as he said once, I no longer know where Swami Kriyananda ends and Yogananda starts. It was just one, that bliss of spirit. And to watch that transformation was one of the greatest gifts of my life. Swami Kriyananda, James Don.
Maybe I'll just leave that on there. So I'll share a few thoughts now, and also a song. I think it's seems fitting somehow to share a little music of Swamiji's after the beautiful presentation, rather than going straight into a talk. Walk like a man. Flip that thing around. Walk like a man, even though you walk alone. Why court approval once the road is known? Let come who will, but if they all turn home, the ghost still awaits you. Go on alone. Follow your dream, though it lead to worlds unknown. Life's but a shadow, once our dreams have flown. What if men cry, your dream is not our own? Your soul knows the answer. Go on alone. Give life your heart, bless everything that's grown. Fear not the loving, all this world's your home. Make rich the soil, but once the seed is sown, seek freedom, don't linger. Go on alone. Go on alone. Go on alone. In Swamiji's life, we saw this amazing magnetism and yearning, calling to Master, and this intense desire to serve. And Swamiji reflected this to us, or sort of characterized it or explained it to us by saying that Yogananda had said to him at one point, very vigorously, he said, all the male disciples that I have had have disappointed me, except for Rajarsi, and you mustn't disappoint me. And he said it with tremendous fierceness. And Swamiji explained to us that what he meant by that was not that he had been disappointed in all these other men spiritually. It was that he looked to them to move the work out, to actually go and meet people with it. And that was a role that he sort of gave to the men, to the monks especially, but also to other men. And Swamiji had that desire. He had that sort of fire inside of him to do that. And literally from the moment that he got on the path, he was, in fact, he hadn't even met Yogananda yet. He was riding that bus across the country, the 4 days and 4 nights that we hear about on the little program we just watched. And we've heard Swamiji say it at other times. He had two desires. One of them obviously was to meet Yogananda and to find God. The fire was lit by Yogananda from that book. But the second desire was to share this with everyone. And when, Nirmala and I have taught all around the world, our paths in a sense have followed his path. We may not have gone to as many schools as he went to, but we have certainly been in a lot of countries and mixed with a lot of people and tried to share these things with others. And I can say quite confidently, having been around literally thousands of students and tried to help many, many thousands, that it's a very, very rare one that thinks beyond their own personal needs, their own personal desire for expansion, for joy, for spiritual experience. And you can't really hold that against anyone. That obviously that, you have to start from somewhere, and that's we start where we are. Where we are is the ego. But discipleship is about overcoming the ego. Discipleship is about offering the ego up to the guru and placing it at the guru's disposal for the guru to use. And and many gurus will just say, go meditate in the cave, in 25 years, come out and talk to me or whatever. But in Swamiji's case, Master had a world mission, and he needed somebody to grab onto that thing and say, this is mine. I will do this. I will share this. I will creatively express it. And so I'll just segue on to what Devi was sharing in the video, that at the time when Swamiji got thrown out of SRF, it was the single greatest disaster of his life. And he pretty much thought his life was over. He prayed to die. He felt like there was no point. As far as he knew up to that point, Master's mission and the organization were one thing. And there was nothing else beyond that for him. So to be separated from the organization meant being separate from Master's work, from Master's mission, from Master himself. And he felt like maybe Master had abandoned him. Maybe he was such a terrible disciple that Master just threw his hands up and gave up on him. And what he came, of course, to understand was that Master hadn't abandoned him at all. He had just simply widened the field and said, you need to be free to do this in a broad way. And as Rajarsi had promised, he would give him the strength to do that mission. And we all are the beneficiaries of that in one sense. And in another sense, we are all the ones responsible for that. And so the role of discipleship continues on into us, that we have to share these things too. And it doesn't mean that we have to write 150 books and 400 pieces of music. Trying to follow lockstep in those ways is impossible. But he can touch other people through us in any number of ways that only one body can only do so much. Swamiji, for as much physical and spiritual vigor as he had, he didn't have the job to go and build a pyramid, and haul rocks up the side of a mountain or something. Yes, I mean, he could have taken part in something like that, but his job was to help bring something from the causal world through the astral world and make it manifest in the physical world. And that thing is not a temple, it's not a building, it's not even a piece of land. We who came and lived at Ananda Village in the 1970s, that was it. There really, I mean, yes, in the late 70s, there were starting to be new outgrowths of Ananda, little meditation groups here and there. There were starting to be other places that used the name Ananda with connection to what they were doing, but there was no other Ananda except Ananda Village as a community. And Swamiji was looking at a much, much bigger vision than that. And he saw this going all around the world. And he knew in his own heart and from his own actual experience, yes, it can. But ultimately, Master's mission is you. Master's mission is me. Master's mission is all the thousands and millions of people who haven't even been touched yet. And it's not about proselytizing. It's not even about advertising. It's really just about manifesting, sort of creating an osmosis, because we can touch people. And we literally saw this with Swamiji. Someone in the grocery store could be touched by Swamiji. Someone on the side of the road that Swamiji picked up hitchhiking could be touched by Swamiji. I mean, in the most mundane, someone coming to fix his propane tank or work on his generator or whatever. I mean, the most absolutely physical level connections could still provide an avenue for inspiration. And that's what discipleship is about. It's attunement to the guru, self-offering to the guru, and self-offering in the sense of giving into our own service in our lives. And we honor I was reflecting that if someone works for a corporation for, say, 30 years, 35 years, from say age 25 to 60 or 65, 35, 40 years, that's a career. That is a significant career. The retirement party, the gold watch, the pension, that's kind of what we look at as a career. Swamiji lived to be 87, almost 80, almost 87. And he was Master's disciple for 65 years of that. And that was not just a little bitty dab of discipleship. That was like the centrally defining offering that he gave to the world, was that 65 years of discipleship. And so we honor that blessing because it is just so intensely unusual in this world to even experience the concept of discipleship. We just don't even see it. We never see it done. We see gurus. I mean, we've been in ashrams around India. We've traveled and we've met people in other spiritual works. And almost inevitably, the pattern is there's a master, there's a guru who has something very powerful, very real. And pretty much anybody can get that. They can figure that out. They can feel, oh, this person has something that I want. And then there will be a small handful. And by small handful, I mean like 1 to 5 people who really get it, who really got something from that master. And they may share it with other people, they may not. And after that, it just practically falls off a cliff. And there can be thousands and thousands of people, even millions of people, who feel like they are followers of that master. And yet for them, it's just about, yes, he inspires me. Yes, it's all so wonderful, and I do a little bit every day or whatever, but it doesn't go beyond that. Swamiji and Master gave us a vision of discipleship that is 24/7. And we've brought pilgrimages to, not we personally, but many times Ananda has sent pilgrimages to India. And so those pilgrimages go all around India and inevitably are around other spiritual organizations. And people are just blown away because it's like you'll see 25 or 50 just in one little group of people, of real serious disciples who have committed their lives to this. And it's not to make comparisons, and it's not to say how great we are or whatever. It's just to say the concept of discipleship is so unbelievably rare in this world. It just simply doesn't occur to people that true happiness, true fulfillment, true spiritual growth can come by offering yourself completely to God and the masters. And to see that in a group is it's unmistakable. And we just are so eternally grateful to Swamiji for sharing the example of discipleship with all of us. There's just, where else could we find it? And we got a vision of Master through the telescopic vision of Swamiji that none of us could have gotten. You can get wonderful vibrations from his books, but the power that he brought, the power that you could begin to feel through Swamiji, that blessing is very unusual. And it's just a great honor and blessing to be a disciple of Master through Swami Kriyananda and to have seen his example play out, his life play out on the stage of this world. So we're going to have now a short reading of Swamiji's. And this is from The New Path. And it's the chapter, True Teaching is Individual. And it is a wonderful little passage.
Do you want to change the camera?
Yeah.
Master was to each of us like a flawless, highly polished mirror. What came back to us from him was not his opinions of us, but our own higher self's reaction to any lower attitude we projected. His perfect self-transcendence never ceased to amaze me. In another person's company, he actually, in a sense, became that person. I don't mean that in our company he assumed our weaknesses, our pettiness, our moods of anger or despondency. What he showed us rather was the silent watcher at the center of our own selves. An amazing feature of my own relationship with him was that I could never clearly remember what he looked like. I needed a photograph of him to bring his image clearly to mind. Even among such photographs, I have never seen any two of them exactly alike. When he is shown posing with someone else, in some subtle way, he actually looks like that person. Shown with the imposing and slightly portly, Senor Portes Gil, the president of Mexico, he somehow looks imposing and portly like Senor Gil. Posed with small, fragile-looking Amelita Gallicurci, the great opera singer, he looks unaccountably like her. Photographed with Goodwin Knight, Lieutenant Governor of California, he appears almost to be Mr. Knight's alter ego. Standing with any disciple, he seems to become that disciple. One wonders how a single face could display such a wide variety of consciousness and expressions. But of course, it was not his face that changed. It was the consciousness behind it. Master went a step beyond seeing the God in each of us. He became that God in order that we might see for ourselves our own divine potential and understand better how the Lord wanted to express himself through each of us. Ah, Master, if only I had comprehended as clearly then as I do now the miracle of your gift to us. But had I done so, I suppose by this time I would be making the same lament on a deeper level. For evolution never ceases until at last time itself becomes timelessness, and the ends we seek end in endlessness. In his training of us, Master's teaching was individual also. It was not that he altered his basic teachings to suit our personal needs. Rather, it was his emphasis that varied. To some, he stressed attitudes of service. To others, deep inwardness. To one, he emphasized the need for greater joy. To another, for less levity. His emphasis was to a great extent too subtle to be phrased in words. He conveyed it by some intonation of the voice, by an expression in the eyes, or by a tilt of the head. When he said to one person, he might never say to anyone else. In a very real sense, he was to each of us our own very personal divine friend. In the work we did, one might have expected him to honor that basic principle of every well-run institution, which is make the best use of individual talent. To Master, however, this practice would have meant using us. His true concern always was for our spiritual needs. Sometimes he would actually take us away from some important assignment, one perhaps for which no one else could be found, simply to meet some spiritual need of our own. Sometimes, too, he placed people in positions for which they weren't qualified, with a view to prompting them in their struggle to meet his expectations to develop needed spiritual qualities. At other times, he gave us work we disliked, not particularly because we would be good for that work, but because the work would be good for us. Perhaps it was that we needed to learn some spiritual quality, such as overcoming a natural unwillingness. Sometimes he would not place people in positions for which they were eminently qualified, simply because they no longer needed those particular experiences in order to grow spiritually. Now we'll have a little more chanting and inward meditation.
So we'll sing. What do you have right there?
Jai Guru.
Jai Guru. Okay. What key is it in?
Starts on A minor.
Okay. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Jai Guru Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. Paramahansa Yogananda, Jai Guru, Jai. I'll sing one of Swamiji's chants. This is, when I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. And also, when I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find thy joy, or I'll know thy joy. And the third verse is, when I awake, I'll end all fear. When I awake, I'll find thy love. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. Hand in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll find thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all sorrows. When I awake, I'll know thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy love. Hand in hand, we're dancing together in thy joy. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy joy. Hand in hand, we're dancing together in thy joy. When I awake, I'll end all fear. When I awake, I'll find thy love. When I awake, I'll end all fear. When I awake, I'll find thy love. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy love. And in hand, we're dancing together in thy love. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy love. And in hand, we're dancing together in thy love. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. When I awake, I'll see thy face. When I awake, I'll see thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. And in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. And in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. Mother, awake me from my dreams. Mother, awake me in thy light. And in hand, we're dancing together in thy light. Dancing together in thy light. We'll sing, O God beautiful. At thy feet, O I do bow. In the forest thou art green, in the mountain thou art high, in the river thou art restless, in the ocean thou art grave. To the serviceful thou art service, to the lover thou art love, to the sorrowful thou art sympathy, to the yogi thou art bliss.
Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet, oh, I do bow. At thy feet, oh, I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. In the forest thou art, in the forest thou art, in the mountain thou art high, in the mountain thou art high, in the river thou art restless, in the river thou art restless, in the ocean thou art great, in the ocean thou art great. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet, oh I do bow. At thy feet, oh I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. To the serviceful thou art service. To the serviceful thou art service. To the lover thou art love. To the lover thou art love. To the sorrowful thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful thou art sympathy. To the yogi thou art bliss. To the yogi thou art bliss. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet, oh I do bow. At thy feet, oh I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. In the forest thou art, in the forest thou art, in the mountain thou art high, in the mountain thou art high, in the river thou art restless, in the river thou art restless, in the ocean thou art great, in the ocean thou art great. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet, oh I do bow. At thy feet, oh I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. To the serviceful thou art service. To the serviceful thou art service. To the lover thou art love. To the lover thou art love. To the sorrowful thou art sympathy. To the sorrowful thou art sympathy. To the yogi thou art bliss. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet, oh I do bow. At thy feet, oh I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. To the service for thou art service. To the service for thou art service. To the lover thou art lover. To the lover thou art lover. To the sorrowful thou art singing. To the sorrowful thou art singing. To the yogi thou art blessed. To the yogi thou art blessed. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. At thy feet I do bow. At thy feet I do bow. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God. Oh God, beautiful, oh God.
Let's close now by sending out blessings, healing vibrations of light and joy to all the world, particularly since we're very aware of this on the west coast of America, to all those whose lives are totally disrupted by fires and smoky air and all the disruption that's been happening in the natural world, and also in other parts of the country where the hurricane came through the southeast in America. But let's just send harmonizing, healing vibrations throughout the world to create more and more peace, more and more divine attunement and awareness. And let's rub our hands together and we'll chant Om together now, sending out these waves of light and blessing in the world. Om. 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 Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Swamiji, for your incredible example, the blessings of your attunement to Master. Thank you, Master, and the Great Ones, for filling our lives with your light and joy. Om. Shanti, 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 Shanti. God bless you all.